And changing an entire industry is hard, not to say impossible. I mean, we have what we have, and we've had it for a lot of decades. It's worked very well. There's a lot of infrastructure in place, and it's frankly just not that simple to change that all, even through decades, much less overnight. At Siemens, we like to say, wouldn't it be great if we could find an optimal balance? It's not all about one size fits all here. Among several different fuel types, with a significant contribution coming from renewable technology, so we could optimize production at a low aggregate cost and make electricity available for everyone on our planet in a responsible and sustainable way. We believe that in order to be truly sustainable, renewable power generation technologies actually need to compete on par with other forms of electricity generation, and that is without subsidies. And it is in that spirit that I would submit to you that if we really want to have more renewable technology in our generation mix, that we need to focus on these three, what I call enabling principles. Renewable energy needs to be as cheap as traditional alternatives. It also needs to be as reliable and safe as traditional alternatives. And we need for renewable energy to be accessible in a way that makes it convenient for anyone to choose that option. So let's quickly explore each of these 3 points, starting with the cost of renewable energy technology. And let's begin that with looking into wind turbine technology specifically. This is an industry segment that has enjoyed heavy subsidies for almost 15 years. And there actually have been a lot of progress made in this segment of the industry. Turbine ratings, for example, have gone from barely 500 kilowatts 15 years ago to some designs today are over 6 megawatts. Some of our offshore blade designs are actually producing 6 megawatts from a single turbine. We also have new gearless designs that minimize the losses and cut down significantly on maintenance costs to try to get the life cycle cost of this technology closer to traditional forms of generation. Today, bulk wind utilizing the latest technology actually can compete on a busbar cost basis with clean coal. So with the environmental cleanup cost factored into traditional coal, there is definitely a competitive case to be made for wind. But unfortunately, that's not the whole story, because many wind farms also need relatively expensive transmission to get the electricity to markets and to stabilize bulk delivery systems during times of intermittent wind. Nevertheless, we're as close as we've ever been to including wind generation without subsidies into the mix. With solar, unfortunately, the story is not as rosy, at least not yet. Although there has been a dramatic decrease in the cost of photovoltaic solar over the past 3-4 years, busbar energy costs are still more than double traditional alternatives. And to me, solar energy could be a real game changer, and I think in Siemens we're very excited about solar. There are some really neat innovations out there. Some of the thin film designs that are packing more capability in a smaller footprint, and even something that we're looking into around buildings, what they call building skins, which are very thin sheets of PV modules that actually could make the entire surface area of a building into a power generation source. These are really incredible innovations that if we can get these things mastered and the cost in a reasonable position, they're game changers for sure. The second point of my 3 relates to reliability and safety. Renewable generation technologies, wind and solar, are inherently safe and they are reliable. However, when we take the consumer's perspective, reliability tends to mean that the supply is dependable. In other words, on a 24/7 basis, you can count on the energy that comes from these renewable sources. And against this yardstick, renewable generation gets a bit complicated. The best wind regions can maintain a capacity factor of only 45 to 50%, meaning that the wind blows sufficiently to produce rated electricity 45 to 50% of the time. Compare that to the capacity factor of a natural gas-fired power plant, which is approaching 90%, or a nuclear plant, which is actually closer to 100% capacity factor. And here in New York State, the situation with the wind is even more fickle. The planning capacity factors used by the New York ISO for wind generation are more in the range of 20%. So this means that really you have to couple this renewable generation with other generation sources, like natural gas-fired gas turbines, for example, or other services in order to maintain and ensure a continuous delivery of electricity even when the wind isn't blowing or the sun, of course, isn't shining. If Thomas Edison were here today, he would probably say that these problems of cost and reliability are for private enterprise to solve, that there are engineers that are out there waiting to unleash themselves on these challenges and come up with the innovations that are needed. And if we're going to provide stimulus to the system to get renewable technology more in a position to compete, I think this is the place to do it. Making these technologies more cost-effective against their traditional competitors is really, in my opinion, a strong place that we should be focusing. The application of enabling technology to get wind and solar to cost parity neutralizes the biggest obstacle, in my opinion, to broad-scale deployment. That is that economic obstacle. And I think that with that problem behind us, it is easier and more tolerant. It's easier for us to be more tolerant to the workarounds that may be needed to address reliability issues, which are by and large in the transmission network. Backup or firming capacity services utilizing relatively clean and inexpensive natural gas-fired generation, smart grid technology to balance grid instability, and even eventually battery storage as it comes of age. All will solve the problem of intermittency as it relates to renewable technologies. Now, all those things have a cost, of course, but there is also logic that these solutions provide an overall benefit to the system, traditional or renewable. And so therefore, those cost allocation methodologies that might share those costs across multiple beneficiaries are maybe a little bit easier to swallow. So this leads us to our last point. How do we open up access to renewable energy options so it is convenient for virtually everyone to prefer that choice? And here's where I think Alan's opening thesis could be categorized. Now, when you look around the world at the different ways countries have chosen to deploy renewable energy technologies, you quickly conclude that there is no one-size-fits-all here. If you drive through the countryside in Germany, for example, you'd be astounded to see that almost every ancient, 300-year-old barn or farm building is covered over in rooftop photovoltaic panels.